Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story of 3 will be about a conflict between 2 neighboring families. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Pretending not to speak English after we ask you to move your car off our property? Fine, we'll do it ourselves. Dad just told me this story tonight. Before my parents divorced, we lived in a 3-house neighborhood. Our neighbors to the left of us were friendly and we got along with them well. Our neighbors to the right, however, were different. It was rented out to multiple families, one of them being an Asian family with 7 cars. This is relevant. Always conflict with them, from 24/7 house parties to trying to break into our cars. The family always caused trouble for whatever reason. Dysfunctional and probably in debt with how many cars they had between 4 people. There was a particular tree on our property that my dad always parked his car under. It was obvious and known that was my dad's spot. One evening, my dad comes home to find the Asian neighbors had parked their car in his spot, a dead car that they didn't use anymore because they probably couldn't afford to fix it, so they decided our property was the best place to leave it to rot. My dad knocked on their door and asked them to move it so he could park, but the gentleman at the door said in a thick accent, "Sorry, no speak English, which was obvious bullcrap. My dad was not amused. He told him, "All right, just move your car or I'll call someone to get it towed." 2 weeks go by and the car's still there. 3 weeks, they still haven't moved the car. My dad gets fed up. They may have 7 cars, but that didn't mean they could park on our property. My dad decided to take matters into his own hands. He rented a tow truck and waited for the family to be out of the house, hooked up the car, and drove it out to a random parking lot in the shopping center nearby and left it there. Next day, the neighbor came by. "Hey man, do you know what happened to my car?" Perfect English, not a trace of accent all of a sudden. Surprise, surprise. My dad played dumb about it. "I thought you couldn't speak English." "Sorry man, I don't know what happened to your car. If you moved it though, thank you man, I appreciate it." Our neighbor couldn't do much because he didn't have any proof my dad did it, didn't talk to us or park in our spot ever again. I love that your dad was smarter at playing dumb than the neighbor. I probably would have said, "Sorry, but I don't speak your language," and made everything worse. And our second story. Psycho family demands and damages my PC. So, backstory. I'm a pretty hardcore PC gamer. When I turned 17, I got a job, saved my first pay packet for a few months, and spent £2,000 on a PC. Over the past 5 years, I kept upgrading it, spending about $4,000 total over that time. 6 months ago, I was having massive issues and turned out my graphics card had fried. Sad face. I'd been saving for a new PC and spent a lot more on that, so I had a spare cooked PC in my room. I swapped out parts and turned it into a mini server to run in my room. All good. This Christmas, we had family at our place, including the young children. My cousin, who's 11, was looking in my room, as it's quite techy, so naturally he's interested. Another point, this child he and his brother are not technical. They don't have mobiles, iPads, game consoles, or even internet. They're very strange children, and they're kind of the weird family you're forced to invite to gatherings because they're family. Back to the story. He notices my mini server and says, "Wow, you have 2 computers." I basically just agree to save the effort of explaining the difference to him. He tells me he wishes he had 1 and just stares at me like I'm the reason he hasn't got his own. I chuckle it off and we go back downstairs to the party. Later on, my aunt, his mom, comes up to me and asks why I need 2 computers. I explain to her it's about one being my main PC and the other being a server. She does the technophobe hands, which are the jazz hands people do when you explain something technological to them. She asks if cousin could have the PC so he can play Fortnite and Pokemon. 1, it's mine, no. 2, it's a server, not a standard PC. 3, they also have no internet or knowledge of how to set up a PC. I basically just flatly say, no, sorry. She storms off, almost in a tantrum. Now, I consider us a normal type family. These things just don't happen. I told my dad, who doesn't like them, and he just laughs loudly. We're getting weird now. Cousin literally sits in my room, sitting against my server under my desk for probably 5 hours. I ask him to come back down, and he just says, no, he's comfortable, and just sits there. So it gets to be about 10 p.m., and people are leaving. Aunt and uncle get their things and get ready to go. They say cousin won't leave without the PC. They look at me like this is my fault, and I'm wondering where the discipline is. Aunt goes upstairs to get him, while the rest of us kind of sit awkwardly in silence in the hallway. They're gone about 5 minutes. I mean, it's not a big house. Grab that little bleep's hands and pull him downstairs. I go up to see what the issue is, and cousin is literally mounting my server. He has his arms and legs wrapped around it, all cables pulled out on the floor everywhere, halfway across the room where he obviously tried to drag it. Cables are clipped, cables that have been yanked out, so all broken. Let me remind you, this child is almost 12. I was almost immediately being pinged by my Discord from players letting me know my game servers had gone down. For those who don't know about servers, pulling the plug is very bad as they need to be shut down properly. I just shout loudly to get the F out. The madness peaks at this point as my cousin looks up at me and hisses. Yes, hisses, like a cat or fat snake. Aunt starts accusing me of greed to the highest degree and drags cousin from the room and downstairs to where basically 15 people are waiting to see the result of the carnage. They tell me I'll be receiving a bill for the therapy cousin will likely need after a traumatic event I caused, which could have been easily avoided. As for the server, I needed to buy new cables. One of the storage drives had shattered when he let it fall over, moving it to its side. After about a week, everything was back to normal. I've joined my dad and brother in non-contact with Psycho Family, but there's a little bit extra. Last week, I received a random Facebook message from a page called PC Donations asking me if I had any spare PCs to donate to children who weren't as fortunate in my local area, a small town. Page had been created about 2 hours prior and had 0 likes and activity, etc. Genius. It would be hilarious to send them a bill for everything you had to replace. And our last story. The whole office quit a few minutes before the meeting. It's been a few years now since this happened, but the revengee in this story is a lawyer, and quite a litigious one at that. So some details will have to be omitted or qualified as my opinion of him. This was inspired by true events, but should only be construed as a work of fiction for the purposes of entertainment of you, internet user. Quite some time ago, I was friends with an upstanding lawyer, UL, who was tired of working for big firms and wanted to start his own. He mainly worked in contracts and such, so he partnered with another fellow who was a litigator. The guy's skills were in the courtroom, arguing and suing, henceforth AS. Though IANAL, so forgive my oversimplification. So he and UL worked together for years, grew their firm, and were generally successful. But UL was never quite as happy as he could have been because AS not only argued and sued all the time, but for whatever reason, he seemed to love to shout at all the employees in the office. ASS from now on. ASS was the kind of person one would only work with once if you could because he was such a pain in the butt. I had heard that he was always doing construction on his house and never had the same contractor twice because nobody could stomach it. Even if the littlest thing wasn't right or if he changed his mind or gave poor instructions, he would immediately threaten to sue. Shocker, right? Or he wouldn't pay for the bill or only pay half and dare you to come after him for what you were owed. It would make sense for a house to always be under construction if people could walk out just to be done with him. I wish I had more stories about his conduct in the office or could provide details to set the scene, but rest assured he was a big old jerk face. Now granted, his loud, boisterous nature may have worked quite well in the courtroom, but to those he worked with, it would have been unbearable. UL knew he wanted out of the firm, ASSUL LLC, and started a plan that took years to execute. First, he sold ASS his equity stake in the firm. UL remained a name partner, but profit share was either reduced or eliminated, unsure of the details. This was one less issue tethering him to ASS. Now it was no secret that ASS was disliked throughout the office, but UL subtly worked the water cooler, gently probed and whispered and realized exactly how much people hated him. The plan develops. Things move slowly. Think a year or two. UL, being intimately familiar with contract law, makes sure all the ducks are in a row for himself and everyone else before launching the plan because everyone knows ASS will try to sue if he can. The plan culminates on a Sunday evening. It's all quiet. UL knows ASS is away for the weekend. Just as dusk falls, about a half a dozen vehicles, pickups, SUVs, and U-Haul all roll up in front of the office. UL has organized a mass exodus. He handpicked the better paralegals, the better secretary, the better associates, and they all begin moving their personal belongings, furniture, and any documents they're allowed to take to a new office 2 miles away. Within a couple hours, we were done. I was recruited for my pickup truck and was sympathetic due to my own experiences with ASS in the past. Come Monday morning, everything is executed with impeccable precision. At opening of business hours, every person in the Exodus movement emails ASS their resignation. 60 seconds later, emails go out to every one of their clients with phone calls to the larger ones, notifying them that they have left the firm. The new office has already been set up, so there's no delay before things are up and running. Now, when a named partner leaves a two-partner firm and forms a new one with several partners composed of the best associates, most clients are going to follow. Best part? UL asked the secretary coming with them if she wouldn't mind checking, before she resigned, ASS's schedule for Monday morning. He wants to know what he'll be doing when he got the news. He learned ASS was meeting with a ghostwriter for a book about achieving success. I just checked prior to posting this, and while the events happened almost a decade ago, I just can't seem to find that book ever being published. And while I've tried to cover my liability in this post, I can state truthfully that this last bit was exactly what I was told. Sue me, ASS. Edit. Epilogue. I last talked to UL about it a year ago. Since they both practice in overlapping areas of the law within a couple of miles of each other, they still run into each other occasionally. A few months after the split, UL saw ASS at a function in a conversation with a few other people. Knowing it was going to be awkward, UL said he just walked across the room, right up to ASS, smiled, shook his hand, and asked how the hell he was, a la Bugs Bunny kissing Elmer Fudd. It sounds like they're civil with each other, though not friendly. And the ASS firm is doing okay, though not wonderfully. UL is much less vindictive than me or the rest of you guys on a forum about revenge, so he's happy with the way things worked out. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.